And South Africa continue their unbeaten run in the World Cup. Welcome to the shiny side. We have with us today from across the seas, Imran Aslam. Imran, welcome to the show, firstly.
Thank you, Faris. How are you?
I'm very well, and I think it's South Africa are having the most anti-South Africa tournament where they look like they're about to lose a game, but they end up winning it. They won every single game so far, and they've looked pretty ordinary in most of them. How do you see the tournament so far?
Yeah, it's been an interesting tournament, especially in the first round. They had, I think, a pretty bad tournament across from a lot of ways. Batting not really clicking, putting up low scores, barely managing to get over the line against Bangladesh, Namibia. But somehow they've held their nerve and they've come through. Yesterday, I think it seemed like they were starting to crumble, or if I may use the word choke, towards the end when they were dishing out full tosses like it was a gift party or something. But then eventually they did still manage to hold their nerve in the last couple of overs. So I think it's a good campaign from them in that perspective that they've been in a lot of crunch situations and they managed to pull through those.
Yeah. But I think what's also happening is before we get into yesterday's game, right? If you look at the entire group, the group two, so there's two games left. England play USA tomorrow. If England, I'm not sure what the exact equation is, but if England, I think, beat USA by 20, 30 odd runs or with 2 overs to spare, England's run rate will be better than South Africa's. And South Africa will go into the West Indies game as a knockout, essentially. So if England win tomorrow by a decent margin, then the South Africa-West Indies game becomes a knockout. South Africa, having not lost a game in the entire tournament, could be knocked out. And given their history and their luck, I will not be surprised if that happens at all.
Yeah, so I mean, when you start talking about, so South Africa has gone through the entire tournament and have lost a game so far. I immediately went back to '96, right? South Africa went through the league stage unbeaten, and they were knocked out by who were they knocked out by? I think England in the quarterfinals.
In '96 was by West Indies, Brian Lara.
West Indies, yeah, West Indies.
Exact same team they play in 2 days.
Yeah. Exactly. So it reminded me of that campaign where they went through unbeaten. But again, I think the big difference here is that they have been in a lot of difficult situations and they managed to come through. But yes, the West Indies game is going to be a virtual knockout for them. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Let's see how, but let's look at yesterday's game. South Africa opted to bat. There was a bit of a surprise. But I guess generally speaking, the day and the night game make a massive difference on this track. And they also dropped Shamsi, who went for, I think, 22 and an over in the USA. They dropped him and they brought Bartman in, and we'll obviously come talk about a lot about him. England went in unchanged. They've made the change mid-tournament, made a change of leaving Will Jacks out, bringing Sam Curran in, thereby having a bowling option to many, if you ask me. But they also have a slightly shorter batting lineup, and that kind of cost them yesterday. If you look at how the game started, right? So South Africa, and we have to talk about de Kock here. So de Kock first over took on his not so good matchup. Moeen Ali hit him a couple of boundaries. He hit 21 runs in an Archer over. But essentially, he scored 65 of 38, and he was by far the best batsman on either side, I thought, yesterday. And I think what was really interesting thing with his inning, Imran, was like generally the headlines is he did really well. But if you break it down, he got 49 of 20 balls in the power play. And after the power play, he only managed 16 in the next 18 balls. So it seems like batting became significantly harder for him and everybody else after the power play. And I think that's because of which, I guess, when the ball was hard and new, his runs at the top were probably the massive difference between the sides.
Definitely. I think his innings was the difference between the two sides. Even I think Josh Butler yesterday said the same thing, that de Kock's inning was the difference. For me, the real standout from the whole innings was how he went after Archer. And, he really took Archer apart. England obviously rely a lot on Archer, expect him to come in with his pace and everything. And he just I think it was most probably a premeditated plan to go after him. And he really just went after him and took him apart. And from that point on, after South Africa had put on a good, I think, 70 odd in the power play, they really had a very strong platform to win. Even though in the next 14 overs, they only got like another 100 runs, but that was a very strong platform to build. And if you compare the two innings, right, England did not have as good a power play as South Africa did. And they were not able to catch up to that in the later part of the innings.
And I think, and we have talked about the mid innings, right? So it was really interesting. But from 62 for not in the power play, South Africa basically scored under a run a ball in the next 9 overs. So even while without losing too many wickets, I mean, they lost the second wicket for what? At 86 for 1 in 10 overs, 113 for 4 in 15. But they didn't manage to actually score. And in the end, the last 5 they scored about 10 and over, right? But I think England did a good job of kind of trying to, Adil Rashid did what he does really well. He went for 20 in his 4 overs for a wicket. Topley ball is 4 for 23 as well. So I think these guys kind of combined together to kind of strangle out South Africa. And with South Africa, guys like Hendricks, the opener, I mean, he only scored 19 or 25. It looked like a really poor innings at that time, but in hindsight, he probably gave good support to de Kock. Miller did all right towards the end, but it seems like South Africa, like the big guys like Klaasen, etc., no one really came to the party as such again.
Yeah, I think a couple of things here. One, Rashid has been absolutely phenomenal this tournament, and he is going to be, I think, very, very key to England's chances going forward. He's just the way he's controlling the innings through the middle stages and not giving away anything. I think every inning, every match he's played, he's figured somewhere in the 4 over or something for 20 range, right? He's done really well, and it's really key. Yesterday, South Africa had Klaasen in, and England kept their spinners on, both Moeen and Rashid at one point with Klaasen in, which is a big, big risk to take. But Rashid was able to keep Klaasen quiet, not give away anything. And they really controlled the innings through the middle overs with Rashid. And I think that's been a really, really strong suit for England in this World Cup so far.
This stat flashed on TV during South Africa's batting, I think before the innings ended, that yesterday with the quick bowlers, balls above 140 kph were going at a strike rate of 180. But balls below one were going at a strike rate of under 100. And which brings me to my next question. Wood was in the 11. He only bowled 2 overs. Do you think England missed a trick by playing him? And is this a luxury they can afford?
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see Wood playing yesterday because for multiple reasons, right? One, it's a very closely packed tournament. You have only a couple of days between games. Wood coming off injury, having injury record, history of injuries, etc. I would have thought that they would actually maybe rest him out. And again, as you said, they have way too many bowling options going with them. So I was a bit surprised to see him in the mix yesterday. But yeah, because you have the luxury of having 7 odd bowlers at your disposal, so you can afford to go with the two overs from someone like Wood when you have Moeen chipping in with 3. I think Moeen bowled 3 yesterday. Rashid obviously bowled his full quota, so they had the 7 overs coming from the spinners.
I mean, I guess we'll talk a bit more about that when we come to England's batting, right? Because if you look at England's batting, this seemed like they had Archer coming in at number 8, which definitely seems a spot too high for him. Butler and Sort didn't really get going as such. Now, England has been messing around with the batting order. So Moeen Ali has been batting at 3 in the first 2 games, in the last 2 games actually, before. And this time they sent Johnny Bairstow, and I think the wicket fell a bit early, and there was obviously tier 1 quick split bowling, had something to do with it. Johnny Bairstow also struggled, only made 16 or 20. Moeen didn't last too long. And then they came to a point where they lost their 4th wicket with the score at 61 in 10 overs, and they needed 103 or 58, at which point it looked like South Africa were well on top. And that's where Brooke and Livingston had an incredible partnership, and they scored 78 in the next 40 balls, and completely brought, I think they played incredible, and they completely brought England back in the game.
Yeah, I think with like 5 or 6 overs to go, it was completely looked like South Africa was completely dominating the game. And these couple of overs, they really turned it around, brought the game back to England. But I think it is a problem, right? Yesterday, with the platform, if you can call it that had been laid after Livingston and Brooke brought them back in the game, right? If England had another batter coming in, like a Will Jacks or somebody coming in at that point, it could have been a very, very different situation.
Yeah, I mean, they lost by 6 runs, right? So one more shot would have been a different game entirely, right? Like that's just how it works.
Exactly.
And also, if you look at again within the partnership, so we haven't talked about Bartman. You mentioned him, right? So South Africa got him in, and with 46, while Livingston and Brooke were still there, they need 46 or 24. Bartman bowled a 21-run over, which is 4 full tosses, all went to the boundary. Now, Bartman is actually known for these wide Yorkers, which he executes really effectively in the T20. And I think South Africa is learning the lesson. Pakistan's already learned that just because someone can do something in your domestic league does not mean he can replicate that at the international circuit when the pressure is on. And he bowled full toss out of full toss. And you know what? It can happen a couple of times, but I thought there was this lack of leadership from South Africa. Perhaps nobody came up to speak to him. They could have told him, you know what, it's not coming off. Try something else. Just try bowling a slow bouncer in the middle of the track. But he kept trying to bowl those, and England just went home with him, basically.
Yeah, it was really very surprising. Like you mentioned, this stat of 140 plus balls going at a strike rate of 180. I mean, I'm sure the South African think tank was watching the same broadcast you're watching, and they would have seen that, right? And everybody was talking about this is not a pace on pitch, this is a pace off pitch. You need to take pace off the ball, and you come in and you try to execute Yorkers. Fine, okay, I get the idea. you want to get your Yorker pinpoint, but okay, try it once, try it twice. If it's not working, then you need to fall back to something else. And this is where I completely agree with you. Right? Markram needs to have come up to him. Actually, he did come to him, but I think that was after the or the
Yeah.
fourth ball of the over.
I think they had scored
Markram needs
18
to maybe
already, I think.
just change the feel.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just change the feel, so it mix it up a bit. Just get the guy to think differently and do something different. And at that point, honestly, I thought that, okay, this is the old South African nerves kicking in. And they had a situation where they could have easily gone on to win the game, but they've kind of handed it back to England on a platter with these full tosses. But they somehow still snuck through.
Segueing into my next point, they needed 25 of 18 at that point with two well-set batsmen. And Rabada came in, bowled a full toss show, but he got Livingston, but he only gave 4 runs in that over. And suddenly the game back went bad. And here I want to talk about Harry Brook. So somehow, it's not like Harry Brook got out immediately. Harry Brook played in the remaining 17 balls. He played 7 of them and only scored 6. So it's not like he got out immediately, but somehow he just struggled to get Rabada and Nokia away towards the end. And he eventually got out in the last over as well.
Yeah, so I think both Rabada and Noti are highly experienced and they've done well. Rabada, I mean, I thought honestly that full toss, Livingston should have hit it out of the park, but honestly, he got lucky with that full toss. But after that, the rest of the over was on point completely, and the next over from Noti as well. So they pulled it back. They figured out where to bowl. A lot of balls into the pitch, a lot of pace off, and that kept England quiet. We've seen time and again throughout this tournament, these pitches are not easy to score off, especially towards the end, right? So it's not the kind of grounds where you can get 10 and over in the last 3-4 overs easily. Everyone struggles with that, right? So if you can get the ball in the right place, if you can get your field right, it is going to be a struggle for teams to get that through. And again, we saw that yesterday.
Yeah, so I guess coming towards Karan, who is kind of facing in the end, he's got 10 or 7, right? And Karan, again, of course, has come into the 11 instead of a number 3 batsman, changing the balance of the side, which makes you question if he can't finish the game off in that situation, is he the right guy for that spot? So I guess England started the tournament with Will Jacks at 3, and they've kind of left him out now. So I guess questions for England in terms of Will Jacks / Karan / Wood / Jordan, which of those guys should be, which two should be in the mix, right? So something for them to, I guess, think about. And again, I don't see that becoming a factor against the US, but against in the semi-final, if England make it, it'll definitely be one. I guess
I think England definitely.
Go on.
I think England definitely need to get another batter, and today they're, I think, heavily reliant on Salt, Bairstow, and Butler. It's basically those 3 that have been doing it for them. And it is, I think, the rest of the middle order has not really come to the party so far, and I think they definitely need to strengthen.
And in a game like yesterday, I feel like even if they had Jordan instead of Wood, right? Jordan is a better batter for sure. So I feel like that would have given a bit more cushion. Somebody who come and hit a 6 or 2, maybe bat before Sam Curran also, who knows. But if you are kind of getting a batsman less, then maybe you have one more all-round kind of balance that out. Even though I'm not a fan of that structure. So I guess coming on to where this group is now, South Africa have won everything, like we said, but they're still looking very vulnerable. If England win by a decent margin, and I think it's about 20 runs or so, they will qualify for sure. And South Africa, West Indies will become a knockout. So I think it should be an exciting game. If South Africa again win, obviously they will top the group. And England, if England win, or even by the way, there's also some rain around tomorrow. So if England's game is washed out, then a South Africa win would take South Africa at first, England second. If West Indies win that game, England go home. That's the other scenario. Yes, there is a bit of rain around England's game tomorrow, so they'll be. I mean, the entire tournament seems to have been marked by rain, unluckily for them. But they seem to have just managed to get through. So let's see how it goes. But what's your pick,
I think
Imran?
we're talking about this group, right? One thing you have to talk about is West Indies, right? I mean, they have had a pretty great tournament so far, and yesterday they really showed that they are in very, very good form. The way they brushed aside USA, I mean, it was a low target, yes, but the way they came out and got this 10 odd overs to make sure that their net run rate goes off the table shows that they are in really good form, and they are definitely someone who's a very strong contender in my view.
So, given what I think, if I had to make a prediction, I would say England will probably beat USA by a decent margin and thereby qualifying for sure. And South Africa, West Indies will become a knockout. And my money would be in a high pressure game would be on the West, because West Indies will have back against the wall, go out all guns blazing. And when South Africa have a must-win game, we know what happens. So I would back the West Indies. I'm not sure which way you lean.
I think I agree. So England definitely, I mean, 99% they're going to beat the US tomorrow, and they know exactly what they need to do to get their run rate in the right place as well. So they'll make sure that they try to get a good win a strong win, regardless of whether they bat first or bowl first. So they'll make sure they do that, and that will put them in a good stead to get into the semis. And then West Indies, South Africa becomes, especially for South Africa, then comes a knockout. West Indies, it's, I think, less pressure because West Indies, even with a loss, can go through if they can keep their net run rate in the right.
I mean, I don't think so, because West Indies have only won one game so far, right? They've lost one, they won one. So if they lose tomorrow, then they are. If England win, they're out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
If England
You're
win,
right.
West
Yeah,
Indies
you're
go,
right,
and West Indies lose, they go home. If England win tomorrow, which
Yeah,
is the
you're right,
likely scenario, West Indies, South Africa is a knockout, essentially.
Yeah, it's a no. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah.
The
Yeah,
only
I
difference
think,
being that
I
South
would- so I
Africa
would-
win would take them in. Actually, whoever wins, in fact, would top the group, and the loser would go home. That's literally how it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think definitely I would back the West Indies to get past South Africa.
Okay, good stuff, Imran. For those of you watching, if you have a view on who you think is likely to qualify in this group, please leave a comment. Imran, thank you for being on.
Thank you, Faris. Pleasure to be here.
And for those of you watching, we'll be back in the next couple of days. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.